Hi, I'm Ashley Collins. Welcome to the interactive vignette on communication. When we think of communication, we often only consider the act of talking. However, communication is so much more than talking. According to the American Association of Critical Care Nurses, communication is a two-way dialogue in which people think and make decisions together. Communication is arguably one of the most important skills in the healthcare environment because it impacts every aspect of care delivery, from the healthcare team all the way to the patient and family. In this module, we're going to look at the skill of communication, identify barriers to effective communication, and learn how to overcome those barriers. The objectives for this module include identifying the barriers between healthcare providers and the patients and their families, discussing key components of the National Patient Safety Goals as they relate to communication, and demonstrate ways to promote effective communication in the pediatric healthcare setting. You're going to view a series of cartoons related to communication. As you look at each scene, look for barriers to effective communication and think how you might overcome these barriers in your own practice. After each scene, we're going to discuss how to overcome the barriers and optimize communication in the healthcare setting. In this first scene, we're going to see what happens when communication goes wrong, or rather when it goes long.
Hello?
Hi, Dr. Smith?
Yes, this is him speaking.
This is Rhonda calling about Bobby Jones in room 514. Remember Bobby Jones? He's a 4-year-old that's here that has pneumonia, and he ended up with a bilateral pulmonary infiltrate, and he actually ended up with an IV infiltrate too. I actually think it's the second infiltrate he's had. But this most recent infiltrate is horrible, and I think we probably should get IV team involved. But that's not what I'm calling about. I'm calling about his potassium level. So he's been on Lasix, and we actually increased the frequency of his Lasix from Q8 to Q6 this morning. And he's had a great response, great urine output. Actually, I think he's negative 600 mLs for the day. Anyway, the lab just called with a critical result. They actually had 2 critical results, but I'm only calling about one of them right now. The potassium value. The potassium was 2.8, probably because of that huge urine output. But he's got Lasix due in another 4 hours because I gave Lasix 2 hours ago. Remember, we changed it to Q6. But that Lasix, I think he's having such a great response that he's having drops in his potassium. And he doesn't have PRN potassium ordered. He's gotten supplements pretty frequently, so I was wondering maybe we would start ordering those PRNs. He also doesn't have Tylenol ordered PRN. He's a little bit cranky, so I was thinking maybe we would want to add that eventually too. But I can talk to you about that later. I was just calling about the critical result of potassium 2.8. So I want to make sure that you know that. And then maybe we would think about starting potassium supplementation, either intermittently as needed, which then I would need a one-time dose right now, or you can order me PRNs and we can watch his level, maybe a PRN for a level of 3.3. I don't know. What do you think? Is that okay?
What was the question again?
How many times has someone tried to tell you a story and the story just drags on and on? By the end of the story, you've stopped listening. The same thing happens when you try to express a concern about a patient. You call for an order and you just provide too much insignificant detail. The listener tunes out and misses the point altogether. The key to effective communication in healthcare is to relay only pertinent information in a concise way to help facilitate decision-making between healthcare team members. When we are trying to communicate with medical providers, you've got to keep it to the point. Using a communication tool such as SBARR is helpful. SBARR stands for Situation, Background, Assessment, Recommendation, and Read Back and Verify. Let's take a look at how effective communication can be using this SBARR technique.
Hi, Dr. Smith. This is Rhonda. I'm calling with a critical result on Bobby Jones. His potassium is 2.8. Bobby Jones is the 4-year-old patient with pneumonia and bilateral pulmonary infiltrates. His vital signs are stable, and his fluid balance is negative 600 mLs for the day. The frequency of his Lasix was increased to Q6 hours this morning, and he's had a great response. He's due another dose of Lasix in 4 hours, but I'm concerned his potassium will continue to fall without supplementation. Would it be possible to get a PRN order for his potassium if it's under 3.5? Okay, thanks. Let me read back the plan. You're aware of the critical result of 2.8 potassium on Bobby Jones, and you plan to enter a potassium replacement Q2 hours if his potassium drops below 3.5. Thanks, I'll look for that order.
See how SBARR can help you communicate clearly? In these next clips, we're going to see another tool that helps you clearly communicate safety concerns.
Hi, Bill. I'm just making my rounds. How's it going today?
How's it going? Well, my patient's O2 sat monitor is not working again, but no one seems to care.
As nurses at the bedside, we have an advantage of identifying patient safety concerns because we're at the bedside, at the point of care. Once you identify a concern, you have to figure out how to communicate that effectively so it can be addressed. Another tool similar to SBARR that's specifically for safety concerns is CUS. CUS represents a way to communicate your safety concern to medical providers or other staff members, even your nurse manager. The C stands for concerned, or why or what has you concerned. The U represents a way to make it known that the concern makes you uncomfortable. And the S specifically identifies your concern as a safety concern. Let's take a look at how to use CUS to express your concern related to repeated issues with a pulse oximetry monitor.
Hi, Beth. Hey, do you have a minute to discuss something that I feel a little concerned about?
Sure.
Well, I'm concerned because I keep coming across pulse oximetry monitors that just aren't working. I gotta tell you, it makes me uncomfortable because I don't know if it's user error or if the monitor is truly broken. I feel patient safety is being compromised here.
Wow, Bill, thanks so much for bringing this concern forward. Ensuring we have properly functioning equipment our team is trained to use is absolutely a patient safety issue. I'll arrange for the monitoring rep to come in on site this week and check the monitors and provide hands-on education to our team. And in the meantime, let's write up a safety report and take any monitor that's not working out of service right now immediately. Thanks again for bringing this to my attention.
Now that's how you cuss in the workplace. Now we move on to the dreaded shift handoff. It seems you spend an hour getting ready for a report and at least another hour giving or getting report. And often the success of shift-to-shift handoff all depends on who you're giving a report to. We find ourselves too often customizing our report to the nurse that we're giving it to style, especially if a new nurse or a less experienced nurse with that patient population is giving report to a more senior nurse. You ever get nervous about giving a report and you want to make sure it's all perfect? It's actually better if you just have a standardized way to give handoff. Did you know that in hospitals, some hospitals have like over 2 million handoffs in a year? That's a lot of opportunity for variation if you're changing the report that you're giving to meet the nurse that you're giving it to. Utilizing a standardized handoff approach helps improve communication, patient and staff satisfaction, and actually reduces medical errors.
Okay, so this is Susie Q, a 2-year patient in the hospital for an asthma exacerbation.
So I heard this patient's dad is in prison. Did you get the scoop on why?
What does this have to do with handoff?
It's psychosocial, of course.
It's easy to start handoff in an organized manner and quickly get off track due to questions or distractions, especially if these questions or distractions are being created by the person you're giving a report to. However, there might be times when a nurse asks you a relevant question mid-report. Although these questions can be super frustrating, sometimes they provide clues to missing pieces of information. There may be times that information is lost over time. Don't always disregard questions mid-report as just interruptions. Just keep in mind, only exchange relevant, pertinent information. As we just saw in the scene, nurses use the heading of psychosocial as a platform to sometimes just gossip. For example, does the reason that the patient's father is in jail have anything to do with his care in the hospital? In most circumstances, this information would be irrelevant to handoff. Now let's see how we can overcome these barriers and effectively exchange a shift-to-shift handoff.
Okay, so this is Susie Q, a 2-year patient in the hospital for an asthma exacerbation. She's receiving albuterol every 6 hours and IV steroids. She's had a great day and seems to be feeling a bit better overall. From a neuro standpoint, she's alert and oriented, and she's appropriately interactive for a 2-year.
Okay, sweetheart, just tell me the stuff I really need to know. Did she have any major events today? I know this patient. I don't need a full head to toe. Actually, the only thing I really need to know is the situation with her father. I heard he's in jail. Did you get the scoop why?
Although you might not feel as though you need all this information, I'm trying to get in the habit of following our standardized report format just to make sure I don't miss sharing anything that's really important with you. I'm going to go through the head-to-toe assessment, and then I can answer any questions at the end. So, now on to cardiovascular assessment. There are no pending orders. That's the end of my report. Do you have any questions?
You didn't mention the social situation with the father.
Okay, I checked with the social worker to make sure the reason for his imprisonment was not going to have an impact on his visitation and or the patient going home, and she confirmed it will not impact the patient. So I didn't include it because it really isn't relevant to this patient's care.
When we are giving handoff, we are usually aware people can hear us. However, there are times when we aren't aware and really should be.
That mother room 502 is psycho. She's flipping out because her son is vomiting a little here and there.
I know. There are kids way sicker than her son. She needs to calm down.
Dealing with your patient's parents can be super frustrating. However, maintaining professionalism in our communication is crucial to not only patient safety, but also customer service. The patients and families you interact with are living their own personal nightmare, and the way you communicate with them will either bring comfort or destruction during their time of need. It's also important to realize that things said in open areas can be easily heard by unintended people. In your career, you're going to come across frustrated or angry nurses just looking for an ear to vent to. It's important that you model the professional communication in these circumstances. Let's see how you might be a positive influence on a peer regarding professional communication.
I'm having a horrible day. That mother in 502 is driving me crazy.
I know you're having a tough day, but this isn't the right place to vent, Linda. If you really want to vent, let's go into a break room.
That mother is a psycho because her daughter is vomiting. Doesn't she realize their kid's dying here?
Take a deep breath. I know parents can be frustrating, but you have to just take a deep breath and recognize that her daughter's needs are the only ones that matter to her. When you feel the same way, if you need a break from that family, ask the charge nurse to offer you a different assignment on your next shift.
As you can see, being aware of what you say in public is important.